Nick Kyrgios makes one thing clear about Aryna Sabalenka wanting to play male again. Nick Kyrgios says he perfectly understands why Aryna Sabalenka is interested in another battle of the sexes, but also adds that not many ATP players would have exposed themselves to that challenge. After losing 3-6, 3-6 to the Australian in Dubai, the top-ranked WTA player issued an interesting remark by stating that she knew the tactic for the next time. To no one's surprise, that comment was interpreted as Sabalenka expressing her interest in playing against Kyrgios one more time. The 2022 Wimbledon runner-up was directly asked to address that one. And when answering the question, the former ATP World number 13 confirmed that he would be open to play the four-time Grand Slam champion again. Also, the 30-year-old admitted that he felt very nervous and didn't get much sleep leading up to the match. Kyrgios: not many top 100 players would put themselves out there in that pressure cooker. Of course she does. She hated my guts after the match. She's a competitor. I understand that too. I would happily do it again, but it's not easy, the seven-time ATP champion said. I know that there would be males in the top 100 that would not put their hands up and put themselves out here in that pressure cooker. That is not easy. The build up the days. I did not have the best sleep last night, because I know that whatever role I played in this was not easy mentally to overcome and go out there and perform in a classy manner as well. Kyrgios opened the match with 2 early breaks, but Sabalenka twice recovered. However, the Australian still routinely won the first set after clinching back-to-back breaks in the 7th and 9th games. Down by a set, Sabalenka responded with an early 3-1 second set lead. But Kyrgios had an answer, taking the next 5 games to complete a 2-set win. It remains to be seen if we will see a rematch of the Kyrgios and Sabalenka match in the future. Nick Kyrgios makes one thing clear about Aryna Sabalenka wanting to play men again. In modern tennis, conversations rarely stay inside the lines. They spill into podcasts, social media, press conferences, and late-night debates about power, equality, and spectacle. When Aryna Sabalenka openly revisited the idea of competing against male players again, something she has spoken about with curiosity rather than complaint, it reignited a familiar but evolving discussion. And standing nearby in that conversation, whether directly quoted or simply understood, is Nick Kyrgios, tennis's most unapologetic disruptor. Kyrgios makes one thing clear, intentionally or not, about Sabalenka's desire. This isn't about proving superiority. It's about testing limits. Sabalenka has never hidden what she brings to the court. Raw power, relentless aggression, a serve that explodes rather than floats. In an era where women's tennis is often defined by athletic intensity, she stands as one of its most physical embodiments. When she speaks about playing men again, it doesn't sound like rebellion. It sounds like curiosity, like an athlete asking, how far does my game really go? Nick Kyrgios understands that instinct better than most. Kyrgios has built a career on challenging expectations about professionalism, tradition, and what tennis players are supposed to be. While some see his talent as wasted or chaotic, others see a player constantly probing the edges of the sport. That probing instinct is what connects him, philosophically, to Sabalenka's curiosity. What Kyrgios makes clear, through years of comments about mixed competition, physical differences, and respect for women's tennis, is that honesty matters more than fantasy. He has never pretended men's and women's tennis are identical, but he has also never treated women players as fragile or untouchable. That balance matters. When Sabalenka considers playing men again, it isn't about erasing differences. Kyrgios's perspective, implicitly, pushes the opposite message: acknowledge reality, then explore it anyway. Sport, after all, grows through exploration, not denial. There's also a cultural element at play. Tennis is one of the few global sports where men and women share stages, tournaments, prize money, and visibility. That proximity invites comparison, sometimes unfairly, sometimes inevitably. Kyrgios has often criticized forced narratives, whether about heroism, rivalries, or who could beat whom. In that sense, Sabalenka's interest aligns with his mindset: let the experiment speak for itself. Not as a publicity stunt, not as a challenge, but as a test. What makes Sabalenka's case especially compelling is that she isn't trying to rewrite history. She's not claiming dominance. She's acknowledging her power and wondering how it translates. Kyrgios, known for his devastating serve and instinctive shot-making, has always emphasized how margins define elite tennis. Speed of reaction, weight of shot, endurance under pressure. By making the conversation grounded rather than sensational, Kyrgios indirectly reframes Sabalenka's interest. It's not about gender politics alone, it's about competitive curiosity. About what happens when elite athletes step outside their usual lanes. There's also respect embedded in that framing. Kyrgios has repeatedly spoken about how hard professional tennis actually is, regardless of category. He knows that crossing divisions doesn't magically elevate or diminish someone. It exposes them. Sabalenka stepping into a men's environment would not be a declaration, it would be a vulnerability. And vulnerability, in sport, is brave. At the same time, Kyrgios's presence in this conversation reminds fans of a crucial truth: entertainment and excellence are not enemies. Tennis often struggles between tradition and innovation. Sabalenka's curiosity and Kyrgios's blunt realism sit right at that crossroads. Neither pretends the outcome would be predictable. Neither promises revolution. What they offer instead is honesty. Kyrgios makes one thing clear: the sport doesn't need myths. It needs real questions. Can power alone bridge structural differences? How does pace change decision-making? What does competition look like when context shifts? These are sporting questions, not ideological ones. In many ways, Sabalenka wanting to play men again reflects the same impulse that drives Kyrgios to challenge norms. Both resist being boxed in. Both understand that legacy isn't only about trophies, it's about moments that stretch the imagination of the sport. Whether or not Sabalenka ever competes against male professionals again is almost beside the point. The conversation itself reveals something important about modern tennis. Players are no longer satisfied with inherited boundaries. They want to understand them, push them, and sometimes stand right at their edge. Nick Kyrgios doesn't romanticize that edge. He doesn't sell it as equal or easy. What he makes clear, through his tone, his history, and his honesty, is that respect comes from realism. And realism doesn't silence ambition. It sharpens it. For Sabalenka, that means wanting to test her game without illusion. For Kyrgios, it means acknowledging difference without diminishing greatness. And for tennis, it means the future will be louder, more curious, and far less afraid of uncomfortable questions. That, perhaps, is the real takeaway, not whether Sabalenka could compete with men, but that the sport is finally mature enough to let its athletes ask why not, without demanding that the answer be simple.